I was waiting for you to do that, Ryan.
Oh, sorry.
You always do
You
it, dude.
you got to do it loud enough, near enough your microphone that it actually makes a little blip on the.
All right. This might be loud, guys. Sorry.
Jesus, dude. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Another Bourbon Show. Tonight, we are going to be drinking we're going to continue on with the American Beautiful. Good job, Randy. We're going to continue on with the American Single Malts. Last week, we did the Colkegan, the Mesquite Smoked Single Malt. This one is not smoked, but it's still an American Single Malt. We're going to be drinking... Ooh, that's the microphone. We're going to... Yes, I did. Just faced the label at the microphone, which didn't help anyone. So we're going to be drinking this American Single Malt from High West. So still the Scotch style, pure malted barley mash bill. So 100% barley. I don't know what it's malted to. Probably like looking at it, probably like a honey malt or honey roast. It's 88 proof, so a lower proof. I think it runs $60 to $70, something like that. And I don't know because this one was actually provided by someone at High West. So we didn't pay for this one. Or maybe this one I did pay for and the other ones were free. Fuck, I don't know. But in any case, yeah, it's limited edition, so it's not readily available. But when they come out with it, it's normally pretty easy to find. And then it's sold out, and then you got to wait a couple months until it comes out again. So, Steven, what do you think of that label?
Well, it used to be better. The old label was really cool looking to me, even though the picture was much smaller. Because we heard the backstory one time. Someone at High West told us that original picture was the sort of sunrise that all the overnight distillers would see when they came out of the rick house or wherever they were. And it was a cool tribute to them. And then this just seems a little bit more, while a pretty bottle, I think that it just seems more like a generic mountain, you know? This kind of looks like some sort of more modern Bob Ross type painting. So it's not bad, but it just has less character to it to me. And I think that the High West whiskey font being white on that kind of gray sky background doesn't really look great, doesn't pop that much. And I just don't think you necessarily get a ton from this other than those mountains. That imagery doesn't really evoke much from me. So I'm going to give this one a straight 5. I think it's very middle of the road. And most of that is propped up by the fact that the artwork still looks nice, but it just doesn't have the character to rise it above kind of a mediocre range for me. And I think that High Country as a name doesn't really do it a ton of favors to either in order to separate it or make it sound like much different. High West, High Country is just a very overall generic package to me. So, but I typically really like their stuff overall, and I'm not I don't like a lot of their label redesign, but I also still don't think it looks bad necessarily all next to each other. But this is one that I think is probably one of the worst kind of rebrands that they've had.
So there's two things that I want to mention real quick. One I want to say before Ryan speaks, and the other one I'll save for after Ryan talks about it. But this is the one label. It's the only label I've ever seen or noticed that they actually give credit to this, to the artist. So it says artwork by Ed Mell. I don't know who Ed Mell is, but I think it's really fucking cool that they at least credited him. It's not some marketing guy. It's not some dude that works for an agency. It's clearly just a local artist, and they liked it, so they added it to the label. And so I want to give credit for that. That's pretty cool.
I will say that is cool. I think that it's clearly is a painting, you know, and so
Hmm.
it's cool that they gave credit. That's what I was kind of getting at with like the Bob Ross
Yeah.
painting and whatnot. But I think it's
Yeah.
also it feels to me like a commissioned painting as well. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
wrong, and maybe they acquired it or something. But I get the feeling that they commissioned it from him, and it doesn't feel very inspired when it's just on a product label.
Yeah. Got it.
So
I feel like this would be cool if it was in the small little square like most of their other bottles. You know how I think the last High Country too, you have that standard, the beigey brown High West front of the logo, and then there's a little square with a mountain in it, or whatever they do. I feel like that would fit a lot better and would look a lot cooler if it was just smaller. It kind of looks cheap to me. I feel like it's sort of a sellout bottle. I don't know if the people upstairs were like, this is the direction we're going to go with the bottling now and the packaging. We did a focus group. Maybe it looks better this way. I feel like it's not really on brand. And I know things change, but the white font, the High West in white, it just doesn't really do it for me.
Hmm.
It's still not a bad bottle. It's better than, 8 out of 10 bottles, but just not the same.
Yeah.
you know what? I'll add one more thing. I think that if you took off that High Country text at the bottom and they put this out as a shirt, I'd buy it. If it
Hmm.
just said High West Whiskey or High West Distillery or something like that with the mountains, I think it looks cool. It's a cool design. I don't want to knock the painting too much or anything like that. It's just, I don't think it's a great label for the whiskey necessarily, but I think it could be cool merchandise.
Yeah. Okay. So the one thing that I want to say about it is that mountain, for some reason, every time I look at it, it reminds me of MF Doom.
Hmm.
I don't know why.
I can kind
It,
of see some of the peaks and stuff, I guess, some of the shading, maybe.
I don't. His mask, for some reason, it reminds me of, like, that mountain reminds me of his mask. Am I crazy?
I think a little bit, yeah. Um,
I'm a little crazy, or a
maybe
little.
because it goes in a triangle at the top, and the coloring isn't too off, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. But those were the only two things I wanted to talk about, were
Well,
that they credit the artist.
at least I can edit that out.
Don't see if anybody else
I'm
sees
kidding.
it. Well, what do you say we try it out?
Let's do it.
All right.
Cheers.
Is this the
Cheers.
lowest proof thing we've drank since like Brothers Bond or something?
What is the proof on it?
88.
88.
It's pretty goddamn low for us. Yeah, it's been a hot minute since we drank anything. Old Monroe's all 90.
A lot of banana.
Oh, I just started sipping.
Did you?
Sourdough. I think it's all sourdough to me.
Oh yeah, I get
That
that too.
weeder smell.
Yeah.
But there's no wheat. Let me double check that actually.
Well, it's easier to drink than last week's. But and not to knock it at all, I just can't get into single malts. America or Scotland or Japan. It's just something I haven't acquired. Like I said, I think if I was actually there, I know this is made in America, but I won't ever really appreciate Scotch or single malt until I'm in Scotland.
Why?
It's Scotland just, I don't know, just has always had that cool mystique about it,
And
the
it,
Highlands. It's very like outdoorsy, woodsy. Just the history behind Scotch. I feel like sitting here in central, United States. I don't I don't really connect with it.
And then you'll have more of sort of a reverence for the heritage behind it and whatnot, and then that'll just psychologically just make you appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if that sounds dumb to you, Dan, but
It
I
does,
don't know.
but
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to be rude. To me, it just doesn't make sense. And again, I'm not trying to be rude. Um, like the best. Here's my thoughts. Like the best Italian food I've ever had in my life was in Germany. Um, and I've spent a shit ton of time
Well,
in Italy.
I think that what you just said, Dan, could still be helpful to Ryan. I think the way Ryan connects with stuff is sort of like, and way a lot of people connect with stuff, by the way, is some sort of nostalgia for it. So Ryan hasn't like had those moments yet where he's developed nostalgia for it. If similarly, if he was in France and had a single malt he really liked, and somebody was like explaining to him the beauty of single malts or something like that, then having one in the future may make him sort of nostalgic for that time, and he would connect that back. And it's probably why it propped. If you think back to our episode with Jack Honey, Ryan and I probably had propped up scores for the Jack Honey based on largely on the nostalgia factor.
Mm.
That's my
Okay.
guess.
Yeah, so again, for me, it just doesn't make any sense. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean, if that's what you think it'll take, then fucking cool,
You know how
right?
like if you grow up drinking, like for instance, Jesse grew up drinking Big Red soda, which I think is
Yeah,
revolting. But then she will have it now, and she's like, "Oh, I grew up drinking and I liked it," you know. But I'm just like, this is like the most trash soda I can imagine ever drinking. It's cough syrup. It's like there's no redeeming qualities I can think of to Big Red, but she grew up with it, which is, like the Stockholm syndrome of sodas or something.
What's that big one down there that was like Mountain Dew, but it's not?
The ski, is that what you mean?
Oh
Ski,
yeah,
yeah.
ski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was always so gross.
To me, I think it tastes the same as like Sprite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't tell the difference, but it's not Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew is slightly different.
Yeah.
To me it's sweeter than the other ones, and I know that part of that is probably because they use like real sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup or whatever. But I like ski a lot. I don't drink it often, but there's times when I'm really in the mood for a ski.
Is that popular outside of that area at all? Or is it just,
I mean, it's not even available
Yeah, there's not
outside of
much
this area.
distribution of it.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's made in Breeze, Illinois, and
I think it's one of those things that the people who are really into it, only a fraction of them are really into it because they like the flavor. I think life is fucking boring and people just like having a thing, you know? And it's just like pride of like a thing you have locally or whatever. Yeah.
It's like the stag beer of pop, of soda.
I mean, I do like stag beer though.
But that is exactly it at the same time.
I mean, I drank so much stag in college because it was $1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually was, half in the bag by the time I started drinking it because I'm like, oh no, I don't want to drink that. And then 3 Jaeger bombs in at the stagger, or 3 Jaegers in at the stagger, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do a stag.
There was like a handful of times the three of us, well, at least for Ryan and I, got drunk on Schlitz beer, ironically, basically. But Dan, I know you like it earnestly.
I honestly do, and I have nostalgia for Schlitz beer, specifically Blue Bull. Hey, what do you say we talk about High Country at least a little? Like,
I don't know. I want to talk about selling saline out of the back of a van.
did I tell you about the time when I was stationed in New Jersey and I went down to a concert in DC?
No.
Okay, so this was 2001, summer of 2001. So pre 9/11, okay? A buddy of mine that was stationed with me in Korea gets stationed in Washington, D.C. I'm stationed in New Jersey at the time. He tells me about a concert, like a weekend festival that's happening at RFK Stadium. And Eminem was going to be there 2001, so that's a big fucking deal. Um, I mean, it was just a huge music festival at
Miss
the football.
Missy Elliott,
Probably.
Macy Gray.
I don't know about Macy Gray, but uh, D11, like the whole D11 was going to be there, along with Eminem. And so I head down there, and I don't know which day it was, but one of the days I started drinking at like 8:30 in the morning. I'm completely fucking ripped by 11 o'clock in the morning. It's just hotter than shit. And I remember going to a nursing station and being like, I need an IV. And they're like, why, are you faint? I was like, no, I want to be able to keep drinking. But I know that I need some fluids in order to keep drinking. And they were like, we can't give you an IV for that. And I snatched one and just fucking ran, right? They had a box of saline bags, and I just grabbed one and took off running. But then I didn't have like the actual IV to give myself the saline bag
Why didn't you just say you felt fucking faint?
Yeah.
because I was drunk.
God damn.
So what'd you do with the bag? Just throw it away.
Probably. I don't
Drink
like
it.
that doesn't no.
What a barbarian. Just you fucking rip open the saline, chug it, and rally.
Oh shit.
That was the night that another bourbon show was born.
Yeah.
We should start a podcast. So my first impression of High Country is that
Have you tasted it yet?
yeah, a couple times.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay.
And my first impression is that it drinks higher proof than 88. It's not the smoothest drink, if you will. And it has some interesting notes and wrinkles to it that are at the tail end of the palate and into the finish that I can only describe as like, Dan, you mentioned honey, maybe that there was like a honey finish to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
A honey roast for the malt.
honey roast, I get some like honey sweetness to it, I think, towards the tail end of the palate and into the finish.
So when I say a honey roast, I'm not talking about like a honey, like there's no honey. It's that you heat so I've talked before about like malted anything is you let the seed germinate and sprout. And the way you stop that sprouting from continuing is through heat. How high you heat that sprouted barley is either like from a honey, so just a light toast, to a chocolate. Just FYI, just for
I didn't know
knowledge.
that whole process, but what I'm talking about is somehow it still, to me, gets a honey flavor to it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I get a little chocolatey-ness to it and marshmallow, and then sort of that sourdough you mentioned earlier, Stephen. That, and there's some vanilla and banana. It's pretty complex. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I
I could
definitely get the
actually drink
marshmallow.
this. I could definitely drink this and not finish a glass and be like, all right, that I don't need any more. I don't really like it. I'm definitely gonna go for a second glass of this.
So I'm seeing here that I wanted to double check that it being an American single malt, it should be a pure barley mash bill, right? Like that's what that means. But I just wanted to double check and see what they say. The mash bill is a blend of 3 different all barley recipes. One is and of course they put an ad right where I fucking need to see. But one is actually a chocolate malt. One is a pale malt, and I can't see what the third one is. But then they also, like, additionally, they use different casks. There's a new charred oak cask, blended with a former bourbon cask, blended with a former rye cask, and blended with a former port cask. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it has a honey sweetness to it. I think you guys are both right about that. I get like a toasted marshmallow. I think Ryan, you said that. I also get like a almost like a nutty flavor to it.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah,
I'll give them credit. They're doing everything they can to make a single malt tolerable to drink. So kudos to High West.
I get kind of a plum flavor or something like that. Like well after I've taken a drink, just like kind of lingering in my mouth too. There's a lot of weird, interesting notes to this one.
Mm-hmm. Not a very long finish.
No, but there's so much flavor like packed in to the palate when you're drinking it that I don't necessarily mind it.
It turns out the less corn you use, the more flavor you get out of it sometimes.
We've heard that.
Even at a lower proof. You don't have to make 160 proof whiskey in order to get flavor as long as you just use a little less corn.
That's a fact. Okay, so general public, are they more like me or more like you two when it comes to movies and actors?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think we kind of represent the overall. I bet it's split pretty evenly.
Yeah. I think Art now, I feel like you and I, Steven, know more than the average person though, for sure.
Yes, I would agree with that, but I think that I would say that half of people who consume a lot of like TV and movies would at least have like 50 to 70% of the knowledge of Ryan and I in terms of like just like picking it up and being able to retain it, even if they're not like actively trying. I think just like people have a mind for that sometimes, you know. But yeah, Ryan and I kind of like trivia, and like we go like the extra mile if we like something, looking into it and whatnot, and then knowing people and who they work with and watching interviews with them and shit like that the average person I don't think does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just obsess and, you know, Wikipedia page after Wikipedia page.
Yeah, we're on the spectrum, Dan.
I mean, I am too, but on other things, right?
Sure,
like,
yeah. That's why it's a spectrum.
just, yeah, exactly. well, I mean, I think I'm on the same. I think I'm on the same spot on the spectrum as you two, just about different topics is all.
Somebody pull up the autism spectrum chart. We have to find out where we are.
Oh man, I'm crying. Oh.
Is there an actual autism spectrum chart?
I'm sure there is, man. We have to identify where we are. Like, look, I want a chart that has like the characteristics of each level. We can figure out what we're on.
Well, it's a spectrum,
it's actually
dude.
a fucking circle.
So what they're saying is it's a radial from the center, and so
it's like it makes like a spider web.
Yeah,
like so you're coming out here and then here, and it makes one of those stupid spider web things. I don't think any of us
make a dartboard out of this.
I think so I don't think any of us have abnormal flat speech, but
we have the same amount of
right.
You see that? It says we have the same amount of autism.
Where?
We have the same amount of autism, just different symptoms. That's us.
That I think that is us.
I have noise sensitivity, at least some of it for sure, because I'll just like get bothered if like I'm at an area trying to talk to people, like at a bar, and I can't. I'll want to leave after a while if we're trying to talk over the music.
Isn't that just normal human behavior, though?
I find it like hard to concentrate, though. Even I feel like some people will be like, "All right, well, I'm kind of over this," but I'm just like, I like actively will avoid it.
Yeah. See, I do. I mean, I don't know if it's considered like on this spectrum, but I guess I don't. Maybe it's more OCD. But if I'm walking down steps, I always have to end on my right foot.
Yeah, that's OCD.
Count up
It's-
steps.
But okay, so it might be on a spectrum of OCD, but like if you happen to land on your left foot, does it like ruin your day?
No, it won't ruin my day.
So that's when it becomes OCD. Like you're
Okay.
like you would have like it not only would it ruin your day, you would have to like
You'd
stop.
go back. You'd go back up.
Yeah, or yeah, and start with your other foot. Or at the last step, you'd be like, "Oh fuck, both feet have to be on this step so that I can finish with that particular step."
I'm not like that, but like people's house, like places I go to a lot, I know which foot to step with on, once I go to the stairs.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that like
Yeah, but I'm
again,
not
it's
like,
a level. It's a level,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, I know I'm not like, some people are like, both feet and come up one step a certain way. Yeah, I don't do any of that stuff, but everyone's got something, right?
Well, hey, what do you say we go ahead and rate this son of a bitch right here? We have clearly talked less about this than any whiskey we've ever drank on this show.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it from a time perspective, I'm going to say 3 minutes we spent talking about this tonight.
Well, we got to make up for it then with some really great detailed reviews then.
Then somebody other than me needs to start. Go ahead.
I'll get us going. I think I'll get us off to the right foot. Just like Ryan stepping off the stairs.
Yeah. Good. I like that. Good job.
So, I like it. I'm gonna give it a 6.9,
All right.
and that's my review.
We should just do that and not explain why.
Just give our scores
Just for-
this time.
I think Connor's gonna look and be like, "What the hell? How funny would that be?"
No, I'm gonna give it a 6.9. I think that it's
69.
yeah, the funny number.
It's a good score.
I can't get it quite into the sevens where I really start. Pretty much anything that's a 7. I think we mentioned this before. Anything that's a 7 or higher is a solid recommend to at least somebody, And then the higher you get, the more all-encompassing and widespread that recommendation would become for anybody that you're talking to. So this, I think, is right on that line where it's not quite a guaranteed recommendation, but I enjoy it quite a bit. But I totally would understand somebody not enjoying this one. It's another one that's kind of divisive, I could see. The nose could split some people on its own. Sometimes people will, like you talked, Dan, about the first time you had the Weeder, Spirits of French Lick. Both the smell and the palate on that one, you're not always going to be in the mood for. And I think that this is another one where it has like an identical nose to it, or very close. And then the palate is another one that you're just not necessarily always going to be in the mood for. It's another one that's has a lot of interesting wrinkles to it, but very few of them are your typical bourbon notes.
Well, it's not a bourbon.
Typical whiskey notes, I should say.
Okay.
And so it's a little harder to recommend for that reason, because if somebody said it's like your favorite pizza being a St. Louis style pizza, it's like, well, there's some
Right.
different stuff going on with this pizza. If somebody said they liked pizza, you wouldn't want to just bring over St. Louis style, because they'd be like, what the fuck are you trying to do? What are you trying to do to me?
And why?
Right. So it's if you go in knowing that and expecting that, I think it's a recommend. But for everybody else, I think that it's a little bit of a departure. Hopefully you read the label on this one and knew what you were getting into, because if you didn't, you're going to be a little surprised when you get home, I think. And I think there's plenty of people out there who probably buy this one and are disappointed in it because they didn't know what to expect. So that's why I put it in that range of 6.9.
All right. Ryan, you want to go or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go next. Echoing a lot of what Steven said.
I want to throw out there, Ryan always goes second.
That's not true.
Always.
I went first 2 weeks ago.
And you went last week.
Yeah.
All right, whatever.
So recently, that's not true, Dan. Even if it's normally true, go fuck yourself, okay?
92 episodes. He's gone second.
And
Two episodes. I'm just
you
kidding,
like
I
those
don't-
patterns because you're autistic, dude.
Yeah. I'll go third, dude.
No, go ahead, Ryan. I'm just fucking around, dude.
This is going to be the creme de la creme or creme de la crap of scotch. I'm just kidding. I don't think I'll like any other scotch more than this one. I've had a good amount of scotches and I don't really enjoy them overly. I think with this, there were so many different complex notes. I mean, you still kind of get that like dish rag scotch taste to it. I feel like most scotches have that. And this one definitely does. But
I love that description, by the way.
the dish
I,
rag.
do- I
Yeah.
love that description.
Because that kind of what it tastes like. But with this one,
Oftentimes, yeah.
yeah, I mean, this one you got chocolate notes, vanilla, sourdough, banana, some of that nuttiness that you talked about, Dan, and that's really cool in the scotch because a lot of the scotches I taste, that just too much smoke, and you can't really discern any of the flavors outside of that. I definitely enjoyed this more than last week's. I'm gonna go a solid 7.1. For a scotch, I really liked it, and I don't foresee myself rating any other scotch higher than this. It's sort of, I'm not going to call it like the 10.0 of scotches, but I definitely like rye and bourbon a lot more, that I can't see myself ever giving a scotch more than what I just rated this one. But overall, really good. I think the packaging can get a little better. I don't think they should go away from what they do best because they have some of the best packaging in the game. And that bottle really doesn't fit with what High West does, but it's a good single malt. And whenever you see it, I'd buy a bottle.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. So I had this number in my head, but I needed the extra time to describe why. That's really where I was at. So I'm going to give this a 6.2, which is pretty low in my brain for this bottle. And my reasoning is because I think you can do better for $80, for $70. These guys know, but I love scotch. I love scotch. I love whiskey, but scotch is up there pretty high on my types of whiskey that I like. And this particular American single malt scotch style whiskey, I just feel like I can do better for less money. And the other bottles that I could do better with, a lot of that money is actually going to the import taxes. If I was in Scotland, they would only be like $40, the equivalent of $40. But yeah, so like, it's a good whiskey, don't get me wrong, which is why it's a 6.2. If it was not good, it would be 5.5 or lower or something like that. But just the flavors that it, like, one of the reasons I wanted to double check the mash bill was because it does have a very like unbaked bread flavor to it, a very yeasty, doughy flavor to it. And I'm not a huge fan of that. If I wanted that, I would be drinking a wheated whiskey, a young wheated whiskey. But this being a Scotch style American malt shouldn't have that unbaked bread, yeasty flavor to it, in my opinion. That's not what I want whenever I'm drinking a American single malt. So for those two reasons, I'm going with a 6.2. That I think you can do better. And if you want that, specifically that doughy flavor, go with a wheated whiskey, because that's natural to a wheated whiskey, where it's not natural to an American single malt.
another bourbon show.